Okay, so because of the previous video that I recorded about flying over Miami, I decided to make a video showing what the number of world objects, what kind of effect it has on the frame rates, because we've been kind of talking about that in the Discord of VATSTAR, which I'm a member of. So I'm going to go through the different amounts of number of world objects so we can see what effects it has on the frame rates and what difference it makes in the visual. So when I started with Solo Flight Simulator back in the 1980s on the Commodore 64. And, that's what got me hooked onto this. But, because of that, we had, this is what our map used to look like, when we were flying from one place to another one. So it was pretty rudimentary and very hard to understand the graphics in there. This is what our airport and our flight panel used to look like. So it was barely readable, but nonetheless, we had that idea that we were flying, so it was still very fun for us. And now here we are with all these amazing graphics, and we still can't find a computer fast enough to fly it and look appealing enough, I guess you can say. So right now I'm flying here at the lowest setting on minimal world objects, and I guess there really is nothing um, other than the basically the mesh and the drape of the graphics, which is a satellite image, but everything just looks flat. You don't really see anything at all but the picture, which, unless you're flying pretty high, it looks very realistic. But if you're kind of low, like right now I'm at what, 1300 feet, so you can tell that it's just a picture and there's no 3D objects there. So I would say that instead of minimal, they should just put none, because it appears that there's nothing there. Maybe, at the airports, there is, but out here in the city, it doesn't appear that there's pretty much nothing there. So in a little bit, I'm going to switch it up to the first notch after minimal, and we're going to see what difference it makes. So you see all those little houses and everything there is just a picture. It's just an image of the houses. They're not really there. So yeah, it makes for pretty ugly low VFR flying conditions like this. So now I'm gonna change it to the first notch up, which is low, and it makes a difference now, because now you can see some buildings there. Even way off in the distance, you can see some buildings. A lot of the little houses and everything, they're still not there. There's some, but not very many, and mostly it's the bigger buildings, not the little houses at all. But it starts to come alive. But oh, I forgot to mention, on the other one I was getting like 70 frames, and this one went down to the mid 60s. Sometimes it goes into the low 60s. So I guess you can say we lost about 5 frames per second, going from what I would say none to low, or what they call minimum to low. But yeah, it looks a little bit better. Like I said, at least you got some buildings now right there. So just enjoy the view here for a little bit, if you can enjoy it at all. I was kind of surprised though, because I thought that Orbx's scenery was going to take a really high drain on the computer, and it's not really the scenery that takes the drain. It's the amount of world objects that you can draw on top of it. And it does look much better, as you'll see in a little bit, with a higher number of world objects. And I think I found the happy medium, but I'll let you guys be the judge of it too once we get to that part. Right now the water also looks kind of plain. I do not use reflections on the water, because everything that I've heard is that you need to raise it up pretty high in order for it to make a difference. And the first few notches, they take a big hit on the frame rates, but they don't really make a difference. So I would rather have nice visuals over the land and the buildings rather than the water. Alright, so now we're gonna go to the middle notch, which is medium, and we're gonna let it reload again. And now there's with every notch that we have increased, you'll notice that there is more buildings. You see a little bit more densely populated. Um, there's a lot more detail, and some of the smaller buildings and houses are also showing up now. And when you look over to the the left side, which is where the cranes are for the container facility over there, you can see there's actually cranes now. Before there wasn't any cranes right there at all. But other than the cranes and a couple of other things, it still looks pretty plain right there. And the houses are still missing. It's just still the pictures. But this is pretty flyable, and this is the way I have to fly when I fly the Zibo 737, because that aircraft by itself already takes a pretty big hit on my frame rate. So I cannot be flying the Zibo and having the resolution or the number of world objects any higher than this. And as you can see right now, it's already giving me about 60. So we lost another couple of frames going to the middle, but it did make a dramatic difference. And even the ships right there, you see the big Carnival cruise ships or whatever brand they are right there. There's actually trains and a few cars already on the roadways, but not very many. And some of those containers looks like they are actually 3D world objects already too. Coming up there ahead, I think those tanks, they are realistic now. They're 3D. So now we're gonna go up to the fourth level, which is one below the maximum. And you notice that once again there's a lot more buildings now. There's a lot more of the smaller houses now, and even the water looks different now. There's a lot more trees as well. They're not just the picture trees anymore, from the image of the satellite image. Now it's actual trees that are drawn on there. And I lost about, depending on which way you're looking, sometimes it looks like I lost 7 to 10 frames. But for the most part, it seems to hang around in the 50s, I think, still. Now you can see that the tanks right there are actual tanks that are drawn on top of the image. So this is what I think I decided was the happy medium, because it looks realistic enough, but it still gives me pretty good frame rates. Obviously right now there's nothing but water in this particular place, so I'm getting mid 60s there, 62, 63. And the clouds also, because I have those scattered clouds, they also take a pretty big hit on the frame rate, especially if you're flying through the clouds or very close to them. So this is pretty good right here, I think. You can see the different shades of the water. You can even see, I guess, what you would be able to see underneath the water if you were really flying over this. But I'm pretty happy with this level right here, and 55 frames right there, 54. Obviously when you go near the more populated, denser areas, it will drop a little bit more than that, but I think overall it's still pretty good. And I think most of the houses are there now. When you look at the populated areas there is a lot of little houses and everything, and still not a lot of cars yet. So now we're gonna go to the maximum level and let it redraw everything again. And this is of course, this is, like I said, the maximum level, so it's not gonna get any better than this. But now there is definitely a ton load of houses already everywhere, and so you can see the detail on all those apartment buildings. The container terminal here, the yard here, still there's a lot of things that are only images, but now I think we gained a couple more ships right there, container ships. The cranes look very detailed actually, by the way, right here. I'm not sure if that's part of the Orbic scenery or if that's just X-Plane drawing them there, even if there was no Orbic scenery underneath. So now I'm gonna just fly along the city here. on maximum. I must say I have been enjoying flying Orbx, ever since I got these packages. It makes it really difficult to want to fly everywhere that you don't have this scenery anymore. It's just makes everything so much more enjoyable and realistic. I can't wait until they bring Southern California for X-Plane, because that's where I live, and I would love to be able to have that with this amount of detail. So right there, as you can see, I'm getting about 38 frames, 37. There's a couple of times I think when it dipped into the 20s, but it seems to be like little hiccups, and then it comes right back up to the mid 30s and maybe even the low 40s like right now. It is very flyable though. What I've noticed is that when you have the instrument panel like right now, that's when it takes the biggest hit. I got right there only 27, 26, but it's because it's getting into the denser area there. But once it finishes redrawing it, I think it picks back up again. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm going to lower it back down to the one level below the maximum, and I'm gonna fly much lower. I'm gonna go kind of like in between the buildings so that you can see the level of detail of the buildings, and so you can appreciate the number of houses and trees that there is flying at a lower altitude. Now this is the HD version, even though I'm only running it in 1080p, not in 4K. So I've seen videos where it looks a lot more realistic than this, but my computer, even though I have like I said before, a Core i7 8700K, and I've overclocked it to 4.8 gigahertz. I have 32 gigs of DDR4 RAM and a GTX 1080 Ti, and I have a couple of SSD hard drives in there, one for Windows, another one for X-Plane, and another one for the Orbx scenery. So even with all that, I find that you can't bring all the settings to maximum without dropping your frame rates into the 20s or less, which in VATSIM of course is not a good thing, because then you'll get kicked off the network automatically now too. So that's why I've been trying to figure this out and trying to determine what the level of all my graphic settings and everything should be. So remember, this is one level below the maximum right now, and even flying this low, it looks pretty good, all the buildings and everything, and I'm getting about 50 something frames a second right there, and the buildings do look pretty detailed. They have even reflection on them and everything, so it's pretty good. I'm sure that if I would get the scenery package like the one for Seattle, which improves the city and the airports, that's another Orbx package, it would look even better than this. But that one does recommend even a beefier computer, so I think I'm just gonna hold off on that for now. This is extremely good enough for me. I mean, compared to the default scenery, this is amazing. So I'm just gonna turn away from here, and I'm gonna put the settings back up to the maximum again, and we're gonna see the effect on the frame rates and the difference in the visual quality when you're flying this low. So remember, right now I was getting about 48, 52 frames a second here as I was going through the buildings. So this will be the last one here. I'll just turn around and start going towards the city again, so we can do the last pass. I wasn't even sure if I was going to be able to keep talking throughout this video, but see how you can see all the little houses that are drawn, the actual 3D houses, so it looks extremely populated now, and they actually look like they're there. They don't look like just the image right there anymore. So yeah, right now I'm getting what, 33, 34 frames a second, flying this low, and I do get a couple hiccups here or there, like every couple of seconds or every minute I get a hiccup, but it's only momentary. See, right now I went up to 43 because it's drawing a lot of water. Obviously, the more water there is, you know, the less objects it has to draw and the better the frame rate is going to be. But for anybody who has doubts about whether they should get Orbex scenery, I think that if you can run X-Plane with certain settings, the Orbex scenery is not going to hit it that much more. I think, like I said, as long as you can balance it out and reduce the number of world objects, maybe. But if you're already struggling with the normal, you know, X-Plane scenery, even with a lot of settings turned down, then it probably will take a hit on you know, your system. And if you can't fly on VATSIM, you know, then that's not worth it, I guess, you know. With my other computer, I used to notice that I had the 8GB GTX 1080, and if I would raise the graphics settings for the texture quality to maximum, not even maximum actually, where I have it right now, one below maximum, I will get a lot of stuttering, so I always had to have it in the middle. But with this one, I'm able to raise it up to the one below the maximum on the texture quality size. I forgot what it's called, texture size quality. And it seems to be doing okay. I think that what I'm being limited by here is my processor. I have overclocked it to 5 gigahertz, but it doesn't seem to be as stable. I don't think I found the right voltage, and it doesn't overheat. I don't think it ever even gets about 70 degrees, but it just doesn't seem to like it. Maybe I'm not, like I said, I didn't give it the correct voltage or whatever, so it can be happy. I always gotta find that happy medium. So yeah, so as you can see, going right in between the buildings here, I'm getting 36 frames a second, and there is some more detail in the buildings too. There's still a lot of empty areas, and I think that, you know, that's about as good as you're gonna get. But I think it looks pretty good. I'm extremely happy that I bought these packages, and I started getting them during I think it was during Thanksgiving or New Year's. I think they were on sale. So I said, hey, I might as well buy them now, and even if I can't run them now, you know, at least I'll already own them for when I get a better computer. And then I did get this computer a couple weeks later, so I'm very happy I got them. So hopefully that helps answer a lot of questions, you know, for people who are considering getting these packages or on the fence about it. What I got for you here. Well, I guess it's time to go home. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn around. Now you get to see a little other parts of the city that I haven't been flying around. What I like about these a lot is that you can actually see like all the parks and the baseball fields, and I mean you could even see the markings on the football and soccer fields. You can see the lines and everything there because just, you know, they're satellite images, but it's extremely cool. I like the way the freeway interchanges look. So the airport is right there straight ahead. I'm just gonna go ahead and climb a little bit and then go land right there. No matter how much I try to make shorter videos, it always seems like for whatever reason, you know, I can't get myself to cut out so many parts to just trim them down. So sorry about that again. I only record at 30 frames per second anyways on my the NVIDIA Experience, what I use for my screen recording, so I don't even want to try recording at a higher quality because then I'm thinking it will take an even bigger hit on my frame rates. Right here approaching the airport, it's coming down to like 25, and I think it's also because it has to be drawing all the other airplanes that are going to be parked. But I've tried, I believe I've tried without draw parked aircraft enabled, and I don't think it makes too much of a difference though. So maybe it's just all the airport buildings or something else that's making it be a little bit sluggish when you're approaching to land. Yeah, when I fly the Zibo 737, there's been times when I have to actually look somewhere else so that my frame rates can come up, so that I don't see my instrument panel in the outside world at the same time, because it does dip, you know, to even below 20. So it's like I said, it's like no matter how much we try to get better computers and more memory and better video cards, with the simulators it's never enough, as you guys all well know. You might be able to run other games at 150, 200 frames a second, but when it comes to simulators, because of all the processing that's going on and all the flight dynamics and everything that's going on, it's just a lot of number crunching that's going on, and there are always going to be a lot less frames per second than other games. At least that's what I've noticed. Well, anyways, I'm coming in here for the final landing here, and hope you guys enjoyed this video. Hopefully you guys get something out of it and help you make a decision about whether you should invest some money into the Orbx scenery.